Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on a fine Wednesday morning. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit about politics. What happens if Trump wins? So let's look at some of the historical numbers, Jeff, and things that have happened and how the markets reacted, under a Democratic administration versus Republican, under the different presidents, things like that, and what the market seems to favor. So you and I both agree that whomever wins, the market's going to propel higher.
Yeah,
Right.
we went back to 1952 and we asked ourselves, how did the S&P 500 perform over a 4-year term? And the numbers we used began on election day in November, and they ended on, pardon me, they began the day after the election, and they
Hmm.
ended on the subsequent presidential election. And if you go back to 1952, the market is almost always higher when you look at a 4-year horizon. There are three exceptions to that rule. But before I say what the exceptions are, let's just point out that under a Democratic administration, historically speaking, the market's gone up about 54% over 4 years. For the Republicans, it's gone up 23%.
Hmm.
However, there are outliers on the Republican side
Hmm.
that we believe had nothing to do with the president, and the market happened to be negative over a 4-year span.
Right. And that's right. Well, we were looking at when Bush was coming into power, I guess from 2000 to 2008. As he was coming in, there was a technology bubble
Yeah,
crisis. And then as he was going into the second term, he had to deal with, I guess, the economic financial crisis.
right,
So,
right at the end of
yeah,
the term. Yeah.
right. So the markets reacted to that, and it was a negative at that time.
Hmm.
So you were going to look at, mention a couple other things that were happening with other presidents that kind of
Yeah.
had some outliers as well.
Yeah. No, if you take out those two Bush terms, then the Republican numbers get a lot better. The only other 4-year term that had a negative performance was 72 to 76 when Nixon resigned over Watergate and
Hmm.
Ford finished the term. I would leave that one in because Nixon was kind of weird. I can see why people wouldn't have been confident investing. But if you were to take that term out as well, you
Hmm.
the Republican numbers go up to, I believe, 52%. And if the Democrats are 54%, that's pretty much in line.
Averaged out. Yeah.
The point we're making over Bush is that the dot-com bubble and the financial crisis cannot rest on his shoulders. He had nothing to do with
Hmm. Hmm.
either of the two.
Hmm.
Um, During Trump's 4 years, the market was up 56%. So I don't believe there's any reason to be concerned over either one of these candidates. I think the
So who
market,
do you think, who do you think, well, like looking at polls today or yesterday, where do you think things lie between Trump and Harris?
I think if an election were held right now, I think Harris would probably win, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
confident saying that because the swing states are so tight in the polls. They're all
Hmm.
within the margin of error. So it's difficult to say. I think the Senate would be Republican, and I think the House would also be Republican. If that happens, you have gridlock, and the market likes gridlock
Hmm.
because you don't want these politicians causing any problems.
Right.
It is very relevant though when there's an emergency that they can get a bill passed. A good example of that would have been TARP during 2008 and when the pandemic started. Those were two
Hmm.
good examples of when you want Congress and the White House to be in sync, but they're usually not in sync, and we usually don't have an emergency. So if there's gridlock and you get a Democratic president, historically speaking, the numbers suggest you'd have a very favorable market. But if it's
Yeah.
another outcome, you still have a favorable
Right.
market in 4 years.
It's
And
all good.
yeah, absolutely. So,
Hmm.
anyways, we wanted to address this question because two of our clients asked about it. And so presumably others are wondering about it too.
Right. Okay. Great
All right.
chat.
Yep.
Talk
Thanks,
to you
Annie.
soon. Okay, bye-bye.